everybody, and welcome. My name is Moira Gemmell, and I'm Director of Projects and Design here at the V&A, so very much involved with numerous architectural practices over the years as we've developed the museum. And it's my pleasure to introduce this latest event in our Talking Architecture series with architecture curator, author and critic and lecturer, Lucy Bullivant. And tonight Lucy will be talking to the French, or I stand corrected, the Parisian architect Michel Mossessian. While working for the US practice, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, Michel led the design of the new NATO headquarters in Brussels. And after the project was complete, they left SOM to set up their own independent practice in 2005 to focus really on the demands of complex, high-density urban spaces. And Mossessian and Partners is based in London, but already has a truly remarkable international reach. Recently completed projects include the 15-storey office block in 5 Merchant Square in Paddington and the Exxon Mobil headquarters in Shanghai, both stunningly elegant buildings. The practice has completed schematic design for the heart of Doha, 9 buildings and a new public square which will create a livable downtown space in the Qatari capital. And it's this work in Doha and their regeneration project of a UNESCO site in Morocco and Michel's principle of the urban room that will be the focus of the discussion this evening.
Let me just first explain for those of you who may not have come to any of the previous Talking Architecture events before. In the series, which has run since 2010, and it's included architects ranging from Renzo Piano to David Adjaye, Alejandro Theropolo, Ken Yang, Antonio Citerio. What we've done is put a critical focus on architecture and its relationship with cities. In fact, all the participants so far have, in fact, built in London, but that's not the only pre-requirement. And similarly, a focus on potential productive connectivities between architecture and urban design of public spaces. So tonight we're very lucky to have Michel Mossessian, whose practice has been based here since 2005 in Hoxton. He's an architect that I instinctively think of when reflecting on architecture as a transcultural vehicle, about urban space as a place of presence and not absence, about the ability to create a fresh contemporary vernacular that rejects cut and paste urbanism, which is so common today around the world, and also about a mentality about project development that goes against the wholly top-down ivory tower mentality. So tonight what we're going to do is look at the various strands of Michel's thinking, and to help us generate a debate about some of the issues, we've invited Peter Rees, who's the the city planning officer of the City of London, since 1985, who trained as an architect, together with Michael, I should make that distinction, Michael Pinsky, who is an artist and a curator, and together with his collaborator of 8 years, Stephanie Delcroix, has recently launched the Relay art programme at King's Cross, which highlights the district's connections to continental Europe. Now, this is really to help us draw out some of the issues. Both of them know Michel and are familiar with his work, and they'll join us a bit later to comment on and hopefully illuminate further his approach to architecture and urban design, and also to hopefully provoke your own questions, so we get a little bit interactive towards the end. Can you tell us about a few seminal moments in your career, maybe earlier on, before you really got stuck into the hard job of making buildings, that influence your perception of space and actually represented the origins of what are today your cultural methodologies that we're going to talk about in a minute?
Be reassured there'll be images, but I'm going to just start with something I was totally overwhelmed about when I was in my early 20s in Paris, a place where there was a lot of things overlapping in terms of music and philosophy then, and I was a student of Paris, sharing different places, beyond my architectural function as a student. I was also going to the classes of many prestigious philosophers of the time. Not to name them all, but there was Derrida, Deleuze, and Michel Serres. There's also Pierre Boulez at the IRCAM, the Institute of Musicology by Pompidou Center, that brought back an incredible density of defining the non-visible, which is music. Now, in our thirst of getting always more for what you can get in an environment, one day we went to, just friends, to this little church that you see on your left side, where two Indian brothers, the Dagger brothers, came to give a recital, a concert. They're singers, and we were in a place that I believe was totally foreign to them. And they are singers with a few instruments, but to set up basically their tempo. And for the first 20 minutes, they were just emitting sounds that didn't make any sense to us. And their technique is continuous breathing and emitting sounds in a repetitive manner. But it took 20 minutes for them to get the church to vibrate. It was absolutely phenomenal. Then for an hour afterwards, they were in this continuous mode of emitting sounds, and I was totally transported. And here, I'm gonna have to speak about building, but what I'm trying to evoke is what did we have as ingredients in the setting? A place that has a capacity to echo, fine, a church, a Romanesque church, and two people that probably never walked in and start to go in synergy and start to get the whole place to vibrate and to resonate. And I would like to, you're going to see the type of, the focus I'm going to develop tonight is, yes, I'm doing buildings, but where are the opportunities to echo, vibrate, resonate with a culture? That doesn't mean that you speak the language of. So, because I'm also working in places where I don't speak the language.
And when you were in the States, you took a lot from people like Bill Mitchell and Marvin Minsky as well.
Yes, so and that's the next series of slides. I'm sorry, I'm going to show you diagrams, but to start also with the phenomenological capacity of the 20th century at the beginning of the 20th century is a good start. That was the first time that in music there was a distinction between just making a presence through sounds, which could be noise, but with an educated mind, you start to hear the repetition of what you start to like. But sounds in this the second school of Vienna with Berg and Webern start to introduce silence in the music. Same with the poet Mallarmé, which came and making space between words, which I found out later that actually the Irish invented the space between words from the Roman scriptures. I mean, it's like another story, but they are very good at language, aren't they? So all of a sudden, there was like moments in history, maybe also with the influence of the Asian philosophies from Japan and from China. There was an awareness that the void could be as important as the full. So just now I'm getting to the question you asked. The first part of my education, which mainly was also as a student, because I still think I'm just about to leave school and do some projects. But one of my professors, John Heddock from Cooper Union, was talking always about the space of the architect that can be only his space. And he was referring very beautifully about the space between the back of your eyeball and the back of your brain. That's where the architect operates. And that was a time, very important time in the 80s, where I had also Peter Eisenman as a professor, where there was a real distinction and divorce from the act of calling yourself an architect but just doing buildings. And they decided to say, buildings is not of our interest, we're going to question architecture. So there was an incredible introspection about refusing the production capacity of what schools trained us to draw, but start to think. And I think the impact was phenomenal. You had the AA at the same time, and then after that you had an incredible amount of schools going into this thinking, the brain, the space, okay? So further down the line, I knew that it was out there, the world, the reality of objects that are there that you may not be able to see and perceive. And it's a fact. I mean, we only register what we can read, see, or hear. And that was the part that was also an intrigue to me. And when I was at Harvard, I was very happy in school. I mean, you're going to find out, but from the way I refer to concepts. And I was starting my PhD because I couldn't, Harvard was offering me a fantastic fellowship, but I couldn't get a salary of that kind anywhere else. But there was also Bruce Graham teaching on that semester, and one of the semester, and he said, here's your PhD on a piece of paper. He said, I'm going to teach you about buildings. I was tempted, so I went into Chicago for 5 years. Then I was like between the duality of maybe an educated brain that didn't know about buildings, but had questioned the notion of space. And there was a world of possibility offered. Now, what I tried to develop since I decided to create my practice was to bring those two things together. And it's like the transformation that is possible when you're giving a chance. And as if I just last word, which is going to be subject to the black box methodology. But that was also the chance that you're given, and as Derrida was saying, you can be given a chance. Never forget to offer resistance, like not in the French way, but to create the différence, as he said as well. The space of transformation between the brain and the world is really a collective effort. So I'm going to start to engage with a few things just after.